They say that we teach what we don't know, or at least that we teach what we need to learn. And I'm coming now from a period of teaching a lot. It's been my retreat season, many classes a week, lots of people, lots of questions and instructions, and giving my view on yoga. And now I'm transitioning to the period that is my time for practice. The body's tired, the mind is a little full. I keep working during the winter with my private sessions and my local work, but I have a little bit more time to take care of my body and to put my mind in longer waves. So I was thinking today, what is it that I need to learn? What is it that I really like to bring to my practice? And from the perspective of the practice, for those of you who regularly put yourselves in the mat, what is it that I find important, especially when you have been practicing returning to the mat now for more than 20 years? So, yeah, I haven't made a list really, but I thought maybe I can do an episode where I go through the staples, the fundamentals, those essential ingredients that my practice holds. And even though some of them might change from place to place or from day to day, there is some core elements that are always there. I think the first one is to find the time. That in itself is a declaration of intention, right? To put some time aside, or to wake up a little earlier, or to take away some of the phone time or the social time and dedicate it to just listen to you. And not listen to you in the sense to your own stories, but listen to your system. Listen to what the body has to say, listen to what the breath has to say. Feel if there is abundance of energy, or if we are, like I am at the moment, a little bit on the lower end. So just the inquisitiveness and the care enough to find motivation to open up a little time, or a lot of time. I don't want to downgrade it, but sometimes it's a lot of time to do maintenance. So that alone is the first thing that I try. I try not to cram it too much. If I only have half an hour or 45 minutes, I would probably just do Shavasana and a couple of stretches, or I would sit for a bit. But if I really want to do asana and I want to do any sort of transformation to my breath, I will make sure that I have plenty of time around what I have decided to do. So if I have in mind a practice that is just maybe 10 or 15 minutes, I'll have half an hour. And if I have in mind a practice that is about an hour, I'll give myself a separate time enough, 90 minutes, 2 hours even. Because that's another thing I have found is interesting, or is important, the way you come in and the way you get out. Now people like to say this word like a download, when you get in the flow, in the center of reception. Practice time often has that quality. It doesn't mean like you get a channel message, but you get insights on you, your mind, your body, your health, your life. And I find that if I allow time to get out without having to rush, without having to immediately get in the shower, into the car and go to work, there is a higher sense of integration and a feeling that it comes with me later on in the day. And coming into it, because it marks the rest of the practice. usually if you come into your practice rushed, you have a lunch break and you just like hang up your clothes and you are going to the practice, you're very likely to start rushing through your sun salutations and speed up your breath and your movements. And yeah, it'll exercise your body, but the vibration of the mind will probably continue to be quite quick. And that will not, at least to me, it doesn't give me a sense of sinking and finding my center. Another thing that I always pay attention is kind of like the only way I practice is the relationship between the breath, my modulation of the breath as a point of intention, and then the way that that breath affects asana and the way asana constricts breath. So when you do asana specifically, if it's just meditation, okay, let's break it into two. If it is laying down meditation, shavasana, you have erased all the friction points. So the main danger is going to be to fall asleep. And this yin meditation style is very useful for therapeutic use. It's very useful for you to relax the body in depth, not shallow relaxation, but in-depth relaxation, and get into the places that you feel are weakened or in pain or in need of attention in general, and spend time, conscious time, loving time, while you maybe softly modulate the breath. But the breath is modulated in a relatively stable and relatively pleasant ocean of sensations, unless you are sick or in pain or something like that. So as you move the breath from the system, there is going to be contrast, but it's going to be mostly the contrast that is offered by the residual tension of the body, because the position itself does not constrict the breath. So laying down meditation, shavasana, yin meditation has this very high potential of therapeutic effect, healing practice. The minute you sit up, because you have to maintain the spine straight, in this case I'm on the sofa, but normally I would keep my back straight by myself. That alone, the vertical, with a little discomfort that many of us feel in the hips, sustain that over time, and it's a small friction, but it's a small friction that is persistent. This creates a mild element of discomfort in the practice that, in my opinion, is built in, because then you see the reaction of your mind to your own reaction to discomfort. So over time, most sitting meditators, they get past this initial ocean of friction with yourself. And then there is further worlds to explore, and there's a lot of focus to explore, and there's a lot of, that's another chapter. But in the beginning, you have this relationship with the part of you that finds reasons to complain or that finds obstacles. So you're teaching your mind to navigate through them without too much drama, without too much sinking into the potholes or climbing to the, the places at the top of the church. There is always the thing that captures the lightning, yeah? So you don't want to fall into the cracks, not stay too long in the lighting target line. So you have this modulation of your mind environment, but mostly you're modulating through intention, attention, and the quality of the color of your mind, the ability to remain equanimous to things that you like and dislike, and how you are navigating your inability to be equanimous, falling off center and coming back to center. But it's mostly a focal attentional treatment. There is a subtle modulation of the breath, but the closest you get to this kind of like pure meditation, let's say, practices, since the intention is to see reality as it is and open up to it no matter what, even the modulation of the breath gets very reduced to the most natural breath that you can allow yourself to have, to be breathed by. But then when you bring asana, you take yourself out of center a little further. You consciously create obstacles for being comfortable, elements of discomfort. And these are planned and well thought out because you want to stretch this part or you want to compress this part. Usually that's the combination that you're going to be using. A part of the body is going to be open, lengthened, and in order for this part to be lengthened, this part will be compressed. So this creates a map of densities, textures, distributions and relative positions of your joints, your muscles, your organs, etc., fascia, that is a tip off balance. It doesn't allow you to be comfortable. If you go into a deep twist, you have moved yourself out of comfort for a purpose. Imagine that you want to increase the flexibility around your spine. Now, when you move yourself out of center of comfort with your asana, you simultaneously begin to modulate the breath, both in rhythm, in texture as well, and in location to respond to this anomaly. And that is where I take my practice. So there is a slowing down of the breath. There is a consciously inhabiting in the movement of the diaphragm from the very, very raw intention to the quality of the execution. And there is a conversation being taken between the diaphragm and the expansion that the diaphragm creates in the breath, lungs, abdomen, etc., that is bouncing against the sensations that are arising from the position. So imagine this position that we were saying. I imagine that I go into a side stretch and I extend the right side of my body and I'm compressing the left one. So with the diaphragm, I'm going to move my breath towards the stretch so that I create a little extra added space. So on the exhalation, I give myself the opportunity to soften and relax it. But on the other side, I have a compression. The area of the stomach, the area of the descending colon is creating, is being squashed. And I can also bring my breath consciously, the movement of my breath, observe it and how it bounces against the increased density with the same intention. With the intention, if you massage something and you compress the tissue, like I do in Shiatsu, when you remove the tissue, if the contact was not traumatic, if it was not an impact, or if it was not a moment where the flesh feels fear, then in the remove of the contact, the flavor of, in this case, two consciousness meeting in the same point, the patient and the therapist, in this case, the relative separate consciousness, although it's one person, between your diaphragm touching your own flesh. And this creates an interesting dynamic because you are breathing consciously semi-assisted, meaning that if you lose the connection to the control that you are exerting on the breath, you forget about controlling your breath, it continues to move. So there is always this force, this undescribed force that breathes into us when we are sleeping, that is breathing. Now I call myself conscious me, little Igor, to collaborate with this eternal presence that expresses itself into my breath, I come and I begin to collaborate, and we co-create this new conscious breath. So I already have that sense of marriage with the spirit that breathes me, and then that dedication and that intention to generate beauty through the breath as the diaphragm expands, and the actual technicality of connecting with the diaphragm and learning how to move it. Yeah, like if you start moving the center of the hand, in the beginning it's just gonna be, yeah, like a child is fumbling a bit, and then eventually you learn all the mobility of your hand. In the diaphragm is not visual. You don't move it, you move it all the time, but not consciously all the time. So it's a learning curve to, and I hope it extends through my entire life. I hope I have so much more to learn, where you're really feeling how you are co-making your breath. I've done that 3 times today. I don't know why I never do it. um, so, self-sabotage, self-sabotage. Where am I? Where was I going? Where was I going? Where was I going? Yes. Yes. So you have your intention. You have your co-creation that expresses it through the excellence of your technique as you are breathing. But with this excellence of technique is a completely unique breath that you are actually designing as you go along. So you can have a predetermined decision that you are going to create an abdominal breath, or you can have a predetermined decision that you are going to create a thoracic breath, or any sort of the millions of combinations. Yeah, those are just names. But at the same time, as you begin your inhalation, your diaphragm feels like an octopus that is touching inside, or if you think of a snail and it's like the little tentacles at the top, yeah? And as it is expanding, is receiving the somatic feedback from the flesh that is moving along the way. So this creates a moment-to-moment conversation between the breather and the space where the breather is breathing in, the breathed. Now the breather, and the breathed are the same person, but they get to see themselves from two opposite angles in the breath, which gives yoga is union, gives this perfect opportunity to have this sense of duality merge in the moment of contact between the flesh and the breath. And then every position creates its own degree of difficulty. So that's why we have different breathing techniques that might support the expansion of the breath. Ujjayi is one of fantastic one. You narrow down a little bit the vocal cord area, the throat passage, and by creating a narrower passage for the breath, then you can prolong it much more, and you can breathe in positions, situations, or movements that can be challenging without shortening the breath ratio. So you create the same, let's say, amount of volumetric capacity, but by breathing longer breaths. Now, that, especially when the heart is running, when a position is demanding physically, yeah? You have this feeling that the heart that speeds up is beginning to pull from the breath. So the conscious breather reverts that around and says, I can feel your necessity for more fuel. I will respond to it, but you follow me. I'm going to breathe slower, and I'm going to pull you out of your fast pace into a softer pace. So this is the way I practice. In soft yin asana, this happens, let's say, within the stretch. So I would say it has more of looking for pathways through the lines of the position that allow ease. But it's usually pleasant. There's no urgency, yeah? When you do a vinyasa practice or a movement practice, you can find yourself called by urgency, especially because the mind that we carry tends to Um, the example that I have been giving lately is, imagine that a bee enters in your car. In that moment is very clear, unless you're allergic. The background understanding that no one loses is that crashing the car is still the most dangerous of the options. But in that moment, there is a shortcut, and the immediate disturbance, the immediate perceived threat, makes you reckless, yeah? And then you are at the danger of crashing your car and ending your life and those who are going with you. Now, it's totally possible, because you know, even if she stings me, it's just going to be painful for a couple of days. Normally, she's not going to sting you. It's totally possible to go like, honey, there is a bee in the car. Ah, true. She's gone. That image is possible, or even a less exaggerated one that you realize and you pull over, yeah? But in the moment, we all have had experience, or even if you drop a bit of coffee, where you get so reckless that you put in danger your own driving. This effect, I find it very much in yoga practice. I find it in myself, and I see it often when I practice with people. How the minute there is this disturbance that the position creates, a difficulty, a friction. You're trying to do your down dog and you gotta push your hands down and open your shoulders out and try to align your back, and you encounter the lack of flexibility in your hips or your hamstrings, whatever it is. So in that moment, first you have an increased sense of concentration in your alignment and all the muscle contractions that are required to place yourself there. But at the same time, this mind of ours is coming with this clear message. There is a disturbance, there is a danger, there is not so much a danger, but there is a discomfort, a friction, an irregularity that I do not like. And the immediate response to that many of us have is to tense up, to speed up the breath, and to get into this rhythm where you are kind of like muscling through constant difficulties. Now, that is one way of training. You muscle through constant difficulties. And all the sports that we do in one way or another do that. And I do many of those. But in yoga, I actually don't want to muscle through my difficulties. In yoga, I want to, if I create a picture that is slightly distorted of my body, in order to achieve more mobility in a certain area, what I want to do is I want to slow down my breath. I want to send a signal to the nervous system that I'm safe, that there is no immediate threat, and that therefore my body can open for healing. So through my practice, my breath goes slowly. I was going to say powerful. Making slow, or not letting slow, meaning weak. Like slow, I mean like I push towards a perceived density, towards a stretch, towards the hip, towards the shoulder. I move the rib cage, or I see the separation between my hips at the end of the inhalation. And in those moments, as the pressure is increasing to reach some sort of limit, the diaphragm feels very strong. Like I'm maintaining a lot of commitment, intention, and presence in a push. And then that reverts on the exhale, and that is different. Where the exhale, when the exhale happens, as you feel the density of the body increasing as the air goes out, and you feel the fibers receding towards their center and kind of like softening, quickly you might feel, let me finish this and inhale again. Not giving the body enough time to to integrate the process of exhalation almost on an exhale to exhale basis. And also to the mind and the emotional field to actually allow themselves to feel relaxed, because it's very threatening to feel relaxed. The actual sensation of relaxation, sometimes it feels very empty, it can feel very peaceful or very intimate. But that's not a feeling that we are immediately accustomed to. So sometimes the first few breaths, when you drop at the end of the exhalation, you're feeling that, and you want to allow yourself to be there in the last end of the or even the post M silence. Yeah. Then, through the connection between your body and your breath, another thing that I look for is, especially once the breath in the second part of the practice is very technically skilled, whichever imperfections or irregularities I might have worked them on the first part of the practice. And then in the second part of the practice, the intention is not just to use quality breath to heal the body, but to allow the quality breath to become, was that the bee in the car? To allow quality breath, well-crafted, technically beautiful breath, to be the vessel to welcome spirit, to welcome loving kindness, to welcome a universe that I want to communicate with on a daily basis, and it comes into me through the breath. And then I open myself to that experience of being loved. And being loved, yeah, theoretically, unlike Igor, yeah, whatever. But beyond that, in the moment, one of the amazing things of the yoga practice is that in that moment you don't need labeling to actually have the experience. Or let me put it this way, you realize that labeling is an add-on to experience. We feel and then we explain. We don't explain to feel. Yeah, we first get the heat of the match in the skin and we feel burn, and then I tell people that I got burned, but I don't need to even have the word in my mind or the language to describe it to feel the burn, to feel the heat. So usually once I have done the effort of cleaning up the breath and putting it in a nice regular rhythm, free. I always tell people in practice, free. It's nice that is allowed to grow into a pattern, because patterns soothe us. But at the same time, I never like to lock the breath into a prison, so I like that every breath has a sense of uniqueness. So I allow, if you would see the wave of my breath in practice, it's regular, but at certain point it becomes a little shorter, because this breath is going to be a little shorter. Then it grows again when it comes a moment of difficulty or more intensity in the body, or simply because I need an inhalation that gets so deep into my body because I am trying to feel something so specific and I need time to get there with my mind. And I know it's immediate. But it's all a process. So even though aha moments are immediate, in the time between one and the other one happen, you get busy trying. Yeah. So in that moment, my inhalation is trying to get somewhere. And then maybe it needs to be a bit longer. But maybe that breath leaves me a little tired, and then the next breath needs to be a little shorter. Tired, overwhelmed, yeah? So you are balancing the breath in a very moment to moment, improvisational, very responsive, very alive. But yeah, trying to bring into the practice love. And that can be confronting. Not every day you feel like you're connecting with love. So the easy entrance, at least for me, is always gratitude. There is not a day, even a day that shit is going down, that I don't feel super grateful and thankful to just to be here. I exercise that a lot. Maybe because I was the owner of a highly critical mind when I was younger, and that was so constrictive that I have taught myself to be grateful all the time, all the time, all the time. So in practice, it just overfloods me. And I actually can feel the body responding in the similar position, in the similar type of breath, in the similar type of environment, even in the similar type of part of your practice. You connect with the awareness that your breath, if you let it, is a vehicle to absorb cosmic love into your being. The way that breath feels is, yeah, ecstatic sounds a little corny, yeah, it's an overused word. So let's round it down a little, but it's a different kind of pleasure than just calling it pleasure. It is a soft physical form of awe, and that feels in your body, in every cell. And then I let that open kind of somatic communication, so use my breath, touch my body, touch my mind, touch my heart, be sensitive to the fact that through my breath, spirit is coming if I let it with tons of love. And what that does, or what that does, is as well another kind of side effect of practice, or almost a core element of practice, is to incentivize and to make me fully aware of the constant conversation that we have with the unmanifested. And for me, it's the breath, nature as well. Nature, the breath, yeah, other things as well, but nature and breath. The feeling that there is a moment there, that there is a portal, that a presence from the other side and a presence from this side are meeting in biology. And I started a few years ago with this direct communication with Source. In my mind, in my heart, in my breath. And the more committed I am to establishing the line, to establishing, wait a second, hello, you come again. I don't know what I was, but I think I said it all. Ah, yes, yes, that I was talking with Brooksy the other day. Yes, so that when you establish yourself as a worthy and interested, worthy, like you think of yourself good enough to be able to be in communication with God. And it sounds silly, but you have not just to believe that it's possible that it happens, but more like it can happen to me, as silly as it might be. But then once you acknowledge that it can happen to you, and that you want it to happen to you, and that you're open for communication, and that you're using your breath to anchor it, and that you're using your body to feel it, and that it's not a fluke of once in a while, but you're actually actively communicating, oh man, the, the portal opens. And it's not super dramatic, it's not like, there are neon signs on the sky giving you signs, But the little coincidence, the synchronicities, the way live events speak to you in a different way, the little breadcrumbs that are left on your way for you to find your way. Oh, it's just so beautiful to live like that. So I make sure that in my practice there is always this reminder to me. I don't think she needs to be reminded that I'm listening, that I'm welcoming, and that I'm welcoming whatever she has to say. Because sometimes she has to say things that we don't really like to listen. So that has to be honest, yeah. Yeah, that would be fundamental, I would say. Then what I might do, yeah, I like to move. If you have been practicing with me in the last couple of years, I've added a lot of kind of side movements to sun salutation, kind of base vinyasa practice. Um, I find as I age, I want to keep the mobility in my hips and I want to keep the mobility in my shoulders and by extension the whole of the spine. And some of the yoga practice designs are very linear forward, yeah? And there is a lot of forward bend and back bend, and then more of a twisty vibe in the center. But I find, even visually, I find that was a very bad explanation. I will not edit out, but just so you know. But I always found kind of like the long mat with the narrow thin. It's kind of practical, yeah. But I always felt, what happens to the sides, yeah. So I'm using a lot of round movements that occupy a more 360 space. Maybe one day I should design a round mat. And in there, what I look is first the quality of the movement. In my practice, usually I slow it down a lot. And not because I can't move the same movement faster, but because I want to clean the impurities of the movement in its most minimum, most simple expression. So I take that hyper slow motion kind of vibe. And then consciously I might decide to speed it up. Then, because it's the yoga practice, I do a ton of other things in a different arrangement, but for yoga, I will synchronize breath and movement. So that's another reason to move slowly, so my breath can flow in the movement. And then I let a mix of years of experience and kind of like a semi-routine that I go through be mixed with a sense of playfulness and investigative curiosity and also direct relationship to what is it that my body needs today. Yeah, some days it's this, some days it's that. Usually I have a template, but then some days you realize, oh, you're a little tight somewhere. So yeah, through the movement practice, a commitment to the breath, cleanliness in the movement, softness in the spirit, appreciation in the mood, and then a mix between kind of like a fourth program and yeah, an aliveness to the moment that expresses itself through improvised movements. And the thing with an improvised movement that is so beautiful, you don't need to judge it. If you're going to be in a position, you need to justify the lines of that position because you're actually going to put quite a lot of force on your body to maintain something for 30 seconds or a minute. So why? But when you're moving, really, since you are passing through, as long as it doesn't hurt and feel pleasant, all you're doing is exploring different movement combinations and movement patterns. So it's important that it has a exploratory nature, so you always surprise yourself. Sometimes even I have practices where I tell myself, how I'm going to practice today as if I was a different person. Almost like try to explore a parallel body language that would be different to mine. It's usually very weird. Yeah. So those would be the main elements. I'm sure I'm going to remember many more. Um, Energy distribution maybe is another one. With the breath, is not just a relationship with the different tissues of the body in terms of texture and kind of vibe, but you also get a feeling if a part of your body or an area is empty or full. And here can be physiology, but here I would almost move more towards the somatic, the pranic body, yeah? Like I would go more into the chakra line, because here, following your vagus nerve, you have all the centers of high emotions. So if you are having an anxious period, it's going to be here in your solar plexus. You're grieving the death of a loved one, it's going to be in your heart. You're having an issue with digestion, is going to express itself. Probably you will have pain somewhere else or discomfort, but the sense of either emptiness or hollowness, or like, please pay me attention because I am hungry, or the feeling of you're pushing these buttons so much that I'm irritated, I'm inflamed, yeah? So you visit those kind of like the central line, those energies in your body. The touch, the texture of the touch will already have a beneficial effect on the tissue, but then in your mind you can always have, as well have a parallel intention to energize. The intention is enough. The communication goes silent. The intention that through the inhalation you're energizing. And if it's very full, maybe the inhale is more like, I'm here and I open the flashing river for you to exit, let go of whichever excess energy is in the area. I know it's very abstract. Let it be that way, I think. I think abstract works very well for abstract. It's like you are relating to yourself internally as fields touching fields. If you see birds that fly in the sky or clouds, or you point your torch with focus, you have this, like the light is hitting, or like, yeah, contact, but it's not point contact. It's like you are moving inside your body with this kind of rhythm. Yeah, so that is the energizing or allowing to release energy. Yeah, that dichotomy as well is something that you can feel. And then overall, the way that the practice unfolds through time, even within the actual practice, I don't push that so much. I'm not like trying to become better, I'm not trying to become enlightened, I am not trying to be super peaceful at the end of the practice. Sometimes it's a bit of physical relief that can be, or emotional relief. This week I had kind of like a sore hip that has been practicing with me every day. 2 weeks ago, super strange, I had 2 or 3 days that I had quite a lot of a sense of anxiety here, and I was working with that, with the breath a lot. But besides that direct intention of the day, or maybe the period, a week or a month, really what I try to do is to not try to do anything. What I try to do is, you're trying to kiss me, is to have a beautiful experience and to really dive into a moment of oneness, that if there is any impact for the future, is that that moment really touched me, that moment softened me, that moment made me feel something, and something true and something intimate. And then there is a ripple effect in you and in your energy field that that moment is going to create, and therefore you will be different afterwards. And maybe a lot of those differences you can actually perceive that they begin to create a trajectory in your life, and that's amazing. And if they bring you closer to God, it's amazing. But it's always now. So if that experience of being intimate with God, with yourself, to feel healthy, to feel loved, to feel present, it's just going to be now. The idea that our life make us happy is circumstances that we can choose happiness on a moment to moment, or that we can choose presence on a moment to moment. So really that's what I bring to my practice. Such a honest, such a true, sincere desire to be here and appreciate this moment to its plenitude, and to do that from within, out, yeah, but from within. Yeah. So I'm going to be doing a lot of that this winter. It's been an intense season, super beautiful from the perspective of the teacher, really, really beautiful. But yeah, who was saying this? Diana, in episode, I think, 16. You find yourself repeating the same things, the same sentences, the same kind of ideas, and because that is a little annoying, you become creative in the way to express them. And I'm always talking to myself, I'm always talking to what is it that I am, what is it that I am discovering that could be useful to share. Then when I see it in you, and I see the way it touches you, and I see the way your energy field refines in such a short time, it also brings me feedback back to maybe have more confidence, also to keep going in that direction in my own practice. So I value the teaching, learning, I value it so much, especially in the circumstances that I'm so lucky to do, with kind of a lot of proximity with you. And then, yeah, I'm really looking forward. My body definitely is looking forward. My mind as well. Heart is happy. But yeah, I'll do a lot of this kind of work this winter. I'll have more time for the podcast as well. I'll do my beautiful privates and regular local work. But I'm going to enjoy a lot of time of being breathing. Yeah. So anyway, just a little sharing. Yeah, I thought of doing this as a practice, but I thought I'll put all this stuff in many words, and I could say more. If you see me getting excited, it's because I really like to share these things. And then I'll do a practice tomorrow where we can put this in practice. And that will be it for today. I know I was very chatty and excited. I hope you can distill some of it. Hope it inspires you. And about these things, especially about practice, yeah, please send me an email or send me a text or a comment if you want me to teach on different aspects or how I view different things. I'm not super technical about asana progression, so if that's your path, find another teacher. But about the transparency of the internal experience and the nuance of perception, that I'm super interested. So you can ask or request that I speak about something or that I think about something, and maybe my only speech is I have no idea about that. It could be. Okay, too long. blah blah blah. Thank you so much for listening. I'll bring the second part of this as a practice tomorrow. I try to wait in the 2 days, so I blah 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 blah. It's a good blah blah. I never want to finish. I never know how to finish this episode. You can get a little crazy talking to the camera like this.